So, how was Backpack to Briefcase? I hope you had a great time practicing your networking skills, and I had a blast as your MC. I mean, aren't Fireball family gatherings the best? And I have a few post-event tips for you. First of all, think back to those goals that you set before the event. Did you get the advice you were hoping for? Did you hear the stories that you expected to hear? What surprised you? Take a few minutes and write some notes for yourself. I bet you had some interesting conversations, but were they transactional, once and done? Or are you looking to build relationships and strengthen your professional network? My advice is follow up with everyone that you talk to. Send them a customized LinkedIn connection request and tell them, what was the most interesting thing you learned from them? And remember to say thank you. But don't leave it at that. Once in a while, send them a message, maybe an article related to their industry, or comment on something that they posted. Remember, this whole relationship thing is a two-way street, and we all have information that other people need, no matter whether it's our first year in university or our fourth decade in business. One final thought. Which skill do you need to work on to feel even more confident for the next networking opportunity? The more often you practice, the easier it will get. I'm Emily Nichols, reminding you that when it comes to networking, embrace the occasional awkward moment. Connect with confidence and build your professional network.